Hello, everybody, and welcome to another one of Microsoft's webinars. We have a great topic for you today, the benefits and outcomes of moving to Microsoft Project Online. My name is Michael Trancho, and I'm a strategic account specialist at Microsoft. I'm also joined on today's webcast with Jim Patterson, who leads in a business development role. The line will not be open for questions, but feel free to use the chat feature. Anything we don't get to will be responded to via email, and we'll be including our contact information at the end of our webinar. If for some reason you get distracted or pulled away, no need to worry. I, as always, will always be emailing the recording and the slide deck of today's presentation sometime tomorrow. I will now hand off the webcast to Jim Patterson. Jim.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate the introduction. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for spending some of your valuable time with us today for the topic of the benefits and outcomes of moving to Project Online. Some of the topics we're going to cover over the course of this discussion today is an overview of the PPM marketplace, the evolution of project management and some of the challenges and things that are being presented in that landscape. We'll talk about the top benefits of moving to Project Online into the cloud in general. And then really through that, hopefully you'll get some ideas for selling Project Online to the organization for the benefits that can be received. We'll also address how you get there, maybe some migration approaches and considerations, and we'll spend some time demonstrating the capabilities of Project Online and the synergies that are available for being in the cloud. At the end, we'll have some special offers for you for attending or registering today, and potentially some next steps that you can take if you're interested in pursuing this further. So with that, let's get started. So, the big buzzword today is digital transformation. And, a PwC CEO survey determined that 86% of CEOs consider digital their #1 priority. And what digital transformation is doing is breeding a whole nother range and mix and type of projects that need to occur throughout organizations, projects and programs for that matter. The idea is project management to execute on this and successfully make it through a digital transformation age is an important factor in the organization's success. As we become a more digital organization, as the marketplace demands it, as we need to find new ways to reach our customers and interact with them and have new offerings and new business models to find ways to achieve revenue, digital transformation is more than just a technology challenge. It's really a business challenge overall and a survival challenge. Now, when we think about the fact that this execution is going to have to be managed with projects, it's interesting that looking at the Project Management Institute's Pulse of the Profession, finding that projects often fall well short of their potential, meaning in a digital transformation context, that means our digital transformation efforts could fall short of their potential. If we look at this matrix here a little bit, and we look at the vertical axis, 43% of surveyed companies reported high alignment between projects and strategy. What does that mean? It means, are we doing the right projects? Are we working on the things that bring the right value to the organization and to our internal and external customers as it is? 62% of projects are determined to have met their goals, meaning do they deliver the value that were expected? Did they come in on time and under budget and with the resources that are expected? And this is kind of flatlined since 2012 without a whole lot of improvement in the marketplace. So what that means is we're not executing as well as we should. And if we think about, are we doing the right projects and are we doing the right projects well, we look at this matrix, look at all the untapped potential we have by the fact that we're not aligning well and we're not delivering as best as we can. If we can improve in these areas, we can start adding a lot more value and make better use of our resources and our dollars within our organizations. Now, as project management organizations or PMOs have evolved over time, so is the need and the charters of what's expected or what they need to do in organizations to really deliver value. Early on, PMOs really were focused with really putting in process. Can we put in repeatable process? Can we have consistent delivery and consistent mechanisms? And the idea is to try and introduce those, reinforce those, and even enforce them within organizations so that we can be more consistent in our delivery. Now, nowadays, that's just not enough as how we started. Delivering the project isn't enough. It really is about, do we deliver value? Organizations, especially in IT, isn't really even about just technology anymore. It's how much business value is IT delivering to the organization. So just delivering the project isn't enough. We have to deliver the right things at the right time with the appropriate quality and feature sets. And another key piece is resource capacity always matters now. We're always doing more with less. And the whole old school idea that we just get stuff done and we never say no to anything really is kind of flying a little bit with our heads in the sand, because there's always something that gives, whether it be scope, schedule, or cost with the traditional project management triangle, or even in quality that can suffer based upon the ability to try to do those things as much as we can with what we have, and maybe even overloading. Not to mention the fact that by burning resources night and day and burning that candle really hard can really lead to high turnover, which can have its own impacts as well, let alone morale. Also, dependencies are also part of our constraints. Not just we're talking about scheduling dependencies of task to task, but certain projects have dependencies on other projects. Certain things have to be done. And if we do one thing, we need to do other things. Or if we don't do something, we need to exclude other things. We need to really factor this in as we think about this, as we have a complex landscape in this digital transformation age. And the other piece is we need troubled projects to get immediate attention. Meaning we want alerts and visibility. We don't want to know after the fact that we blew it. The idea is we want to get notifications in time so that we can have time to take corrective action that will actually have some time to have some chance of having successfully mitigated the situation. And the idea is that we need good information in order to make those decisions and have that visibility. And once again, speaking the language of business is really about not technology. It's not about having the latest and greatest technology. Does it really add value to the business, and does our leadership get and our customers get what they need? And even though this is going to be focused a little bit on technology today, software alone isn't enough. It's only part of the equation when we look at this. It really is about people, process, and technology. So some of the PPM trends that we see in our travels, working with many, many customers, and the analysts are seeing as well, are some of these. The move to the cloud and the whole idea of a digital PMO. And this really aligns really well with the topic today of moving to project online from Microsoft. Also trends that we see that are related to that are the rise of Agile as a methodology or a framework or an approach in order to deliver these things and having the right tools to do that. Because of the technological age and the things that we're doing with digital transformation, it's also breeding more new product development type projects, which can also be managed with different methods. Also, we have this concept of connected systems, getting rid of silos of information, and then being able to visualize that data in ways and consuming it and interpreting it in ways that paint a good picture for us so that we have good decision support. And the other trend that we're seeing is with the cloud-based offerings that are out there, more and more we're seeing artificial intelligence and predictive analytics come into the mix. Even simple things that we do today, like using our mapping software on our phones and our GPSs, are all things that are using AI today and becomes part of our normal life. Well, it's going to affect PPM in a number of different ways moving into the future. And moving into the cloud does enable us to take advantage of those things a lot more easily. So let's talk about the cloud in general. The cloud really delivers, and one of the benefits is a lower total cost of ownership. Sometimes people make the mistake of saying, here's my license cost for my on-premise software, and wow, the subscription cost for the cloud version of that software or the cloud alternative to that software seems a bit higher on a year-over-year basis. When we look at the on-premise hidden cost, only 9% of the total cost of on-premise solutions is really software licenses. And I like the metaphor here of an iceberg, where what's showing is the license cost over above the water, but down below is really the lion's share of what it costs us to actually keep and maintain these solutions. You have the hardware, you have the consultants and the dedicated staff that have to maintain it and implement it and upgrade it. You have the whole infrastructure that needs to be maintained by your IT organization. Not to mention the disruption of upgrades that have to happen and downtime that may happen with all of that. The idea is when you add that all up, the costs are a lot more on an ongoing basis than just the license costs if we look at that. When we move over to cloud computing and we look at some metrics from the Yankee Group, cloud computing can offer a 46% lower total cost of ownership. And actually 68% of the cost is now the subscription fee rather than 9% of the cost, meaning you have no upfront license fees, you pay as you go, no hardware infrastructure to manage. You can actually free up IT resources and remove IT even as a barrier, if that is a barrier for you, by being able to work directly with the vendor to provide that software or that solution as a service. You can actually lower implementation costs because you get rid of all the environment variables that go on from server farms and infrastructures from customer to customer and get a more consistent landscape or platform on which to work with. Also, there's no more upgrades. When you're in the cloud, you're always on the most current version of the software, and you end up with a predictable monthly or annual cost for your software, irrespective of all the other components you have in on-premise software. So the idea, there's a predictability, and once you get past a point, and depending on the software, it varies, but the payback periods can be as low as, say, 6 months, and maybe as much as 2 years, but after that, you're basically in a surplus as far as the benefits of total cost of ownership in most cases. So what does it mean to go SaaS, or software as a service? You look at the things on the left-hand side that are grayed out. Those are the things we used to manage. And the idea is that the customer had to manage and bear the costs and the effort of all those things on that left-hand side of the diagram. On the right-hand side, it is now all managed by the vendor, and you get to focus on executing and doing the work of the business rather than doing the work of the infrastructure itself. So if we take this to Microsoft PPM, which is a common phrase that's used to describe Project Online or Microsoft Project and Portfolio Management, it's designed to be a comprehensive and end-to-end solution for all project and portfolio management. Built upon the Microsoft Cloud, specifically the Office 365 Cloud. For those of you that are using Office 365 today, the benefit there is that it becomes just another extension or another part of your user experience in Office 365. Not a separate animal, not a separate platform, not a separate technology for you to have to worry about. And then from a capabilities perspective, we go all the way from upfront strategy, ideation, requests and business cases, down to the high-level planning that you may need to justify a project, and then the more detailed planning you need to execute on those projects to successful outcomes. And with that, being built in Office 365 and specifically on a SharePoint Online foundation, with it you get all the collaboration tools that you need, as well as content management. You get built-in integration or synergies with insights, reporting, and analytics via Power BI, which is the Microsoft Office 365 offering for all that business intelligence. And then the extensibility in the platform using things like Microsoft Flow for business process and simple integrations, Power Apps for building codeless apps for things like mobile access and those types of things. It makes it really an ecosystem for which you can actually tailor it and grow your organization through a maturity in a project management and portfolio management process. So if we look at the PPM capability areas that are in Project Online, it really is a continuum and end-to-end from the upfront demand management with ideas and requests, funding requests, business cases, etc. Budgeting and cost management, which we often have to do just to get the project justified. Moving into the portfolio management arena, where some folks' portfolio management is just portfolio visibility into all of our initiatives and projects, but it could also mean optimization and strategic alignment, and all those tools are in there within Project Online for you to take advantage of if there's things that you are ready to do as an organization. And then the project management execution from the schedule management, resource management perspective, and the collaboration around that, meaning tracking things like issues and risks and changes, documents and artifacts that are related to the project, on, and to other things that you can add to that mix through the collaborative platform. The ability to collaborate and interact from the project managers to the PMO down to the team member level through online task statusing and time reporting, meaning team members that get assigned work can provide online progress updates and have them fed back to the project manager for acceptance into the project plan without rekeying that information. The reporting and analytics with a native feed to Power BI and be able to have that be a natural output of the process without us having to construct reports, or mash up the data so that we can construct those reports, which is typically a manual or at least semi-manual process for a lot of organizations, even today. And it is one of the bigger time savings that a solution like this can actually offer to an organization from an effort perspective. And then there's the integration side of things. A full set of readily available documented APIs and some connector tools and integration tools that are available to connect Project Online with other work management tools, like maybe agile tools you have in place, your financial systems, your ERP, your HR systems, even service management systems for maybe unstructured work, etc. The idea is it handles all of these things within the platform via the interconnectivity available through the APIs. Now, companies like Wickersoft, we provide ways to get into this type of solution quickly. Not only can you enable it quickly through your Office 365 administrator by just checking the boxes and enabling the licenses you've purchased, but to configure it in a way that's best practice and a way to get the most out of the solution, we offer pre-configured solutions with a lot of value-added things already done, the things people do over and over and over again. We get a way to get you up quickly within a matter of a few weeks rather than months of consulting effort or configuration time. And the idea is that that's a value add that people find to get total cost of ownership of getting this solution up and a shorter time to solution by having a quicker go live date as you move through. Wickersoft also adds our One Analytics. Microsoft has some out-of-the-box report packs, but we have extended data storage and report packs that go beyond that to give you more flexible reporting options. And though not required, it's something that a lot of our customers find a lot of added value into the platform. And then our One Connect is really a set of productized connectors, really providing integration as a service and leveraging Microsoft's APIs so that we can connect to other tool sets with productized connectors that the vendor, Wickersoft, would manage, instead of you having to build one-off custom connectors and maintain those as solutions change, as APIs change, and having to stay on top of that and bear the cost yourself. Once again, the value of the cloud. Think of it more as integration as a service. And then we have value-added tools that get added in the mix through our One Plan tool. And we'll talk about that more during the demonstration, but it enhances or maybe even adds even a greater degree of capability beyond what Project has in there on its own. So let it be said that Project Online can offer ways to deploy this for even the most fledgling or lower project management maturity organizations, but has a lot of headroom to grow with a lot of advanced and sophisticated capabilities that people can move into to address the needs of even the most robust and mature rigor in a project and portfolio management process. Now, part of the value of the cloud is the whole idea of continuous innovation. I said earlier on that you're always on the most recent version of the software. Well, when this was Project Server and an on-premise based solution up until 2013, the first versions, they came out with a new major release of the software about every 3 years. And you would actually wait for new capabilities, see if it was in the next release. You'd have a system upgrade process that might be disruptive because it might make some significant changes to the way you were doing business and adopting your server infrastructure and your database infrastructure. Now, in the cloud, new capabilities are kind of bled out or incrementally added to the solution slowly on a more continuous basis. So incrementally, you might get a new fix here, a new feature here, but in a way that you adopt these things a little bit at a time. And if it's a feature you've been looking for, you get to use it right away. If it's something that you really don't want, you just don't have to enable it or even use it within the solution. But the idea is that you're always on the most recent, latest, greatest version of the software, meaning you're getting additional capabilities all the time, as well as you're never going to have to go through one of those upgrade processes again once you move into that cloud. Some examples, just recent examples from Microsoft and recent additions, is that they've added some iterative or sprint-based capabilities in Microsoft Project Online. In Project Professional, which is the full client that talks to Project Online, you actually get to build sprint-based or iterative-based plans in the same user interface that we're traditionally used to doing waterfall. People tend to still think of Microsoft Project as a waterfall-only tool, and that's its history and its roots, but it now has the ability to create backlogs, sprints and iterations, do card-based moving of progress across a board, like you would see, but all working within the same solution. And that's been rolled out as a capability to all Project Professional users who have Project Professional 2016 for Project Online. Also, recently, in recent months, a new Project Online home experience has been added. This allows people, instead of going into a project center and navigating through a myriad of projects to find theirs, lets them personalize their own entry experience into Project Online. Meaning, just like with other Office products, you can actually see what your recent accesses have been, so you can get back to those most current things quickly. And you can even favorite projects in there so that you can get to the ones that really, really are the things that you want to focus on, get you quick access to those. Right now, it's being used strictly to give you access to Microsoft Project Online, but in a unified work management type of approach that Microsoft is taking with this platform, it's going to allow us to bring in projects in the future from other things like Visual Studio, now called Azure DevOps, things like Office 365 Planner, and even other third-party tools down the mix. I've heard talk about Jira and other things like that. So the idea to make it truly a project hub for Project Online and beyond with other things. Also coming soon, it's supposed to be released in the next 30 days, is this roadmap feature. People, when we talked about a lot of new projects that are being driven by the need for new product development, whether they be software or other types of technology products, the idea of road mapping is something that's very popular and asked for all the time. This new roadmap feature is going to be provided to all Project Online Professional subscribers, such that they can actually have roadmaps that easily give them the right swim lanes, the right look and feel, the right incremental tasks or milestones that really reflect, from a true road mapping perspective, give you a way to kind of tailor that for yourself. And it's going to be available for Project, Visual Studio, Azure DevOps, Planner, and even Dynamics, Microsoft Dynamics as we go through. So the idea is this exciting new capability that you'll get just as an additional capability for being a subscriber. And Wickersoft as a partner, we're also adding value to the journey. One of the nice things about the Microsoft Cloud and the value there is that it allows third parties to innovate and easily connect and add value. One of the things that we do, and I mentioned our OneConnect product that allows us to easily integrate and provide productized connectors for customers on a subscription or a service basis without them having to intervene and do custom coding. And the idea is we maintain that platform in the Microsoft Cloud and connecting to cloud-based solutions. We can connect on-premise solutions as well, but the cloud-based solutions are easier to do and take less time and effort and maintenance in order to make that happen because of the consistency of the platforms and the less variability that there are from environment variables in customers' own individual areas. Even things like our One Plan, where even though Project Online has some capability for resource capacity planning and for financial planning, some folks want to take that to another level. And for those folks, we have some enhanced resource capacity planning capabilities on a more graphical basis, and also more flexible and more detailed financial planning on a project basis, program basis, etc. And the idea is these are things that are made possible because of this cloud deployment of Project Online. So what about the overall value of Microsoft? Why do we want to do, why is doing Project Online with Microsoft of value because of Microsoft and what they're doing? Well, Microsoft is really a leader in cloud technology these days. And when you talk about cloud infrastructure as well as business productivity tools within the cloud, all supporting a digital transformation effort within organizations and across all industries. When we look at that, the offerings that they have in the cloud are more robust and diverse than anyone else in the marketplace. For those of you that are using Office 365, maybe using Power BI, maybe using Visual Studio, Team Services, VSTS, or maybe things like Planner from Office 365, or maybe even some folks using Dynamics for things like Salesforce automation or for ERP solutions. The Microsoft PPM or Project Online is just one component of an overall synergized cloud strategy, so that as you take advantage of these things and have them all work together, it just increasingly adds more value, and these things will work together for you in your organization as they get implemented to mirror or to automate the processes and the capabilities that you need within your companies. Another factor is the idea of Microsoft Project itself. From a scheduling tool perspective, it is by far the most widely used and universal project scheduling tool in the marketplace. By comparison, other project management tools are really niche products by the size of their footprint in the marketplace compared to Microsoft Project. In fact, probably the biggest alternative or biggest competitor to Microsoft Project from a project management perspective is actually Microsoft Excel. So people using spreadsheets is probably one of the bigger competitors to that for people that maybe don't need scheduling capabilities. But from a scheduling perspective, what's the value of that to you? One is people that you hire, the chances that they'll know Microsoft Project as opposed to other niche tools that are out there in the marketplace is of a higher likelihood. In this landscape today, we're all working with vendors, contractors, suppliers, maybe interacting more collaboratively with customers, and the chances that they'll be familiar with this more universal tool is probably of a higher likelihood than other tool sets that might be out in the marketplace. That being said, it just allows us to fit more people in and get people in to adopt this process and us to collaborate with other people much more readily in the marketplace. So Project Online's top benefits, just to recap this a little bit, it is part of the Office platform, meaning it's based on a SharePoint foundation. It is part of the Office 365 environment. It gives you the opportunity to provide a single governance model. Even though you might have different portfolios and other things, you can actually do intake and bring in work and then put it through a governance process for vetting and for approval. And funding, such that it goes through the same processes regardless of what type of work it is, and going into a more holistic portfolio within Project Online. It's also familiar ground, and I think that really speaks to adoption. One of the biggest pain points people have sometimes is rolling out new solutions and new technologies. The familiarity with Microsoft Office, Microsoft Project, SharePoint, and the other things that this is based on really increases the likelihood that you're going to have successful and an easier adoption of the tool sets because of the familiarity. All the cloud stuff we talked about, minimal upfront costs, no capital investment in server infrastructure, et cetera, no license costs upfront. You get to scale as the business matures, and scaling is really about, I think, I look at it in two ways. One is from a computing capacity perspective. In the old days, we'd have to estimate and size server farms and database sizings and capacities for what we might want to do. Here in the Microsoft Office 365 cloud, as you demand more compute power and more storage, it will just provision it automatically for you so that you have what you need as you need it, instead of you having to manage that and plan for it. And sometimes I used to have customers run out of capacity in the server infrastructures that they put up in place. And just from a visual simplicity perspective, it's a tile-based, fairly simple, intuitive interface. And then just the advanced functionalities that are available to you, like portfolio analysis and what-if scenario analysis, to optimize portfolios and such are things that you can grow into. So from a scaling perspective, you can start very lightweight. You can use it in a more simple fashion if you're not ready to do the advanced things. But as you grow as an organization, you're not going to outgrow the solution of Project Online anytime quick or anytime too soon. And then we'll talk about the strong reporting, you know, the native feed of that data to Power BI and some report packs and other capabilities to tailor those reports for yourself. But ultimately, the value of that is to have good decision-making tools at your fingertips with good data presented to you in a way that makes sense, so that you can make good decisions and adjustments in your project management process. So we talked about Wickersoft's pre-configured solution, 1 PPM. All these things and value-added apps are out of the box to allow you to just get started quickly. I mean, technically, someone could deploy our pre-configured solution and actually start managing projects day one. But we do have kickstart deployments that allow people to take that basis and then do some nominal changes that use their nomenclature, their terms, their process, and get that up much more quickly than it does from putting these things up from the ground up. And once again, because of the cloud basis of this, it allows us to do this consistently and quickly across all customers. Our report packs in One Analytics, the ability to have best practice reports for intake, for portfolios on a schedule, cost, financial basis, project-specific reporting, resource reporting, timesheet reporting and compliance. All those things are available out of the box that you don't have to build custom reports in order to get that data out, though they can be tailored if you want to for the things that specifically you want in your report forms and formats. And then if we look at this overall, I mean, the benefit really comes down to economic impact. And Microsoft, several times over the last few years, enlisted Forrester to do a total economic impact study. And they did another one in 2018. And they surveyed, polled a number of different organizations. And here's some of the findings. They came up with what they considered a composite organization from the mix of organizations that they had. They did a view of 3-year outlook on returns and such. And you know, the profiles of the composite organization was, say, on average, a $500 million revenue, so very large companies, 10 locations in the U.S. and UK, 150 projects, you know, were the average, 35 project online professional subscriptions, meaning project managers using them, and then 100 project online essential subscriptions, which are the team members. Now, you can vary this, but to get the metrics, that's kind of the composite profile of a company that we're talking about here. And the benefits and the returns that were identified were over 3 years, a 387% return on investment from implementing Microsoft Project Online. And the benefits in a present value context was $4.3 million. And the net present value less cost was $3.4 million. And the interesting part, that I thought, was resource management improvements was the biggest contributor to that. If you see, the resource management benefit was a $3.5 million 3-year benefit in present value. That's 3.5 of the $4.3 million dollar benefit that's itemized over on the left-hand side. So improved resource utilization by using a tool like Project Online provided 74% of the total benefit received by the solution. So if we look at the little bullets down in the lower left, there was also reporting efficiencies, meaning that manual and semi-manual process resulted in a 60% time savings for project managers, and it freed them up to use that time in a more productive way in managing projects and doing things more strategic or high value. Improved resource utilization, as we talked about. Part of that resource cost was an 83% reduction in overtime cost due to increased project visibility that led to improved resource utilization. And then just overall increased transparency helped project performance, meaning if we can see what's going on more readily, we know when adjustments or interventions are needed so that we can actually drive these things home more successfully and make the adjustments that are needed. Ultimately, improved customer satisfaction, isn't that what we're all about, whether it's internal or external customers? Improved customer satisfaction and on-time delivery was improved using Project Online. And then that Office 365 synergies we talked about earlier on, that was borne out by the Forrester Total Economic Impact survey. That enterprise collaboration across project and non-project work really gave us those benefits. So if we look on the right for a payback period, I find this pretty interesting. In this composite organization, what they looked at when they looked at cost versus benefits and cumulative net benefits, we look at the costs in year 1, year 2, year 3. It's looking like the payback came at no later than late in year 1 for the when the actual benefits started to cross, cumulative net benefits crossed over what our costs were in order to get those. So the benefits here that we see are I think, apparent. And I think as you look at this, you can determine this. And we have some ROI models if you want to talk to us about that, and plug in the numbers that make the most sense on the returns that you could maybe anticipate or that you feel are valid, and really come up with some good ROI models as you're going to sell this into your organizations. So as far as concepts go, that's about what I have on there. So let's go talk and look at the solution a little bit of what Project Online looks like. Now, as we talked about, Project is part of the Office 365 environment. As you go in and you look at the waffle of the applications that have been enabled for any user within your organization, notice that Project is just like any other: OneDrive, Outlook, SharePoint, Word, PowerPoint, Excel. And the idea being is it just becomes part of that overall user experience. So when you go to the part of your day where you're managing projects, you just actually go to another tool set in order to make that happen. What we're looking at here right now is Microsoft's latest addition, which is that Project Home. And this is where you're allowed to look at the recent things that you've been working on. You're allowed to actually favorite those things and have them show up in your favorites tiles up at the top. And you can actually create new projects from here using templates getting directly into Project, meaning that each of these entry points is now tailored for each user based upon their preferences, as opposed to going into a big project center to find the things that they want to find. So it's a huge a step forward, as well as it's going to evolve and improve over the near term, where other tools are going to be added more than just Project in order to add projects to the mix in your Project Home, from things like Visual Studio, Office 365 Planner, etc. Now, in Project, we do have a project center. And in that project center, you get to look at your portfolio of projects in a variety of ways. And there's a full security model in here, so you can determine who can see and do what within the solution. Here within this, you notice that I'm looking at a portfolio that has a certain set of columns of data, including graphical KPIs that can be formula-driven or manually set. Also, you can see that they're grouped and summarized by, in this case, life cycle stages. Requested projects, ones that have been approved and not started, ones that are in progress. But you're not limited in any way on how you do this. The capability to add metadata or enterprise fields to classify and categorize your projects is really, you're only limited by your imagination in that. And when you come in here, if you wanted to look at these things and have different separate portfolios, if you wanted to have other groups on programs and other things like that, you can actually have different views to do that as you go on through. Now, the ability to come into Microsoft Project Online and create new projects may stem from a couple different areas. One is you might just have these enterprise project types or templates in here that allow you to quickly have schedule templates that have your logic and your work breakdown structure and maybe even high-level generic resourcing assigned to them, pre-thought out and start that. But it also gives you the ability to have a workflow that is particular to that particular project type, with phases and stage gates and things like that that you can push them through. And each type can have its own, where larger capital project types might have a more robust workflow and set stage gating, where a small enhancement project might have a very expressive, very limited set of process that goes through it in order to make those things happen. The key is you can have as many of these different enterprise project types as you want. And the idea is as you add them to the mix, those project types will have their own templates and methods accordingly within them. Now, outside of that, you can implement and enable, and it's a native capability to have ideas and requests as a little farther upstream in the process. So let's say, for example, I liken this to a funnel where I might get 500 requests, of which maybe 300 of them, we decide that, no, these are not ideas for now. And then we look at the remaining 200, and then we decide that we're going to invest a little more planning and business case time into those to justify those. And out of those 200, maybe we decide to do 100 of them. And the idea is those 100 get promoted and ultimately get into our project center that I showed previously with our project portfolio. And the idea is this request process can serve as that intake and approval, as well as a parking lot for maybe good ideas whose time had not yet come. And we want to capture that information and not lose it. And the idea of this can be a simple process, Notice I'm looking at a list of requests that I've made in this, in the my requests area, where I've come in and I've said, I can see what state they're in, new, in review, approved, rejected, on hold, and high-level information in here, like what type of project it is, who requested it, who's the sponsor, what the estimated benefits and costs are, maybe some rankings on risk and priority, maybe a preliminary prioritization score, as well as some voting capability, kind of Yelp style, that allow you to have people vote on this so we can get the general sentiment on that, as well as the fact that you can actually enter these things in more of a data sheet mode instead of actually going in and looking at more spreadsheet style, be able to enter and edit this data in a very simplified fashion across the board. The idea is that new requests can come in. The data that you would like to actually have in these requests are totally up to you. But some templates that we have in our Kickstart, in our 1PPM, allow you to put details around it and put data in and grade these things a little bit so to generate a preliminary score for these requests that come in as we get them through that funnel and approval process. Now, ultimately, as we go through here, if these ideas then get to the point where we want to promote them to projects, then either through workflow approval, through whoever has the rights to do that, or through going in and explicitly saying promote or create a project, we'll actually promote this idea to an item with a enterprise project template that's appropriate for that project type and add it to that portfolio. So only the things going into the portfolio are the things that we're seriously considering working on. It's nice to go from this early stage through project execution in a continuum rather than having this done off to the side in spreadsheets or other solutions and then having to have all that recreated in the PPM solution later on. And I would say this, if you have a robust intake and budgeting process, this simple process I just showed you could be more complex. We have templates and capabilities that allow you to get in and do more capital budgeting and business case type of development. And this is nice because people can get online and do this in the cloud very quickly. Here I'm looking at a summary page of a business case summary page that's done based upon some detailed information that's entered in a more robust form. And when you see this, you'll notice that we have, instead of that simple form, we have a tab form with more detailed information and business case justification narrative, as well as things like around cost estimates on other areas and hardware, software, labor, and other things that you might capture. But the idea here is to see that you can have a very robust process and forms capability that feed that project management process just as easily as the simple ideation case that I showed initially. Now, should these things all become projects, and the ones that do become projects, notice that things have come over here as still in the requested state, but they've kind of made it through that ideation or project request gate into the portfolio. And here they can be part of more robust portfolio analysis and what-if alignment of that set of projects. So for example, if I came into a particular project like this social networking integration, you can have a lot of the data that you want to capture around this project all in one place. Notice I've got a web-based view of the schedule here in Project Web Access. It might have been created in Microsoft Project, but what it's doing is it's getting published and stored in a native Microsoft Project database repository on the back end. So instead of emailing copies of the project plan around or having everybody need to have a copy of Microsoft Project on their desktop in order to open a plan, or having people send PDFs of the schedule all over the place in order to make that happen and have people wonder if they're looking at the current version of the news, this is one source of the truth and a web-based version of having that schedule. And then like we mentioned with these project types, you may have a particular workflow around this that this project type is using. Notice the phases and stages and gates that are here. There's a number of different gates and phases that people with the right permissions can actually advance and approve these to move from one phase or gate to the next. Also determining what data is required at what stage. So in each of these stages, you can determine which data elements are required to make these things happen and some visual indicators of where you are at in that workflow status. Now, as far as project details, and be able to go into the summary and look at the different metadata and data that you want to actually enter around these, like what program or portfolio they're part of, what departments involved, et cetera, as well as all the usual schedule, work, and financial information around that. It's very flexible to determine what are the data points that you want to capture as an organization, highly configurable. And what's really strong is when you start thinking about strategic alignment and strategic impact, you can establish a central set of business drivers so you can have common valuation of your projects, such that, for example, in this case, expanding into new markets and segments is a business driver. And it might represent 25% of an overall weighted score. And how well this project is determined to align with that particular driver would determine how much credit it gets towards that score as you look at these other things like improved customer satisfaction, increase market share, reduce expense base. These are just ideas or examples of the kind of drivers that can drive your valuation and prioritization of projects, as well as selecting which ones are going to return the most value to the organization. As well as being able to do on an individual project basis more detailed planning on areas like resource capacity. So long before you've thought out the detailed schedule, for example, on the project, you may have to justify and say what resources are going to be required. What's the budget that's going to be needed? What kind of cost categories are we going to need? So long before you have detailed tasks in a schedule like I showed you, flushed out and finalized, you may want to go into an area, and this is something that Wickersoft adds in one plan, but it's fused right into the Project Online user experience, meaning that if I come in here and want to start looking at more detailed information and planning in areas like resource capacity planning or more financial modeling, that information is all in here. So notice the financial planner that allows me to track budgets and cost categories and cost types. I could be looking at budget. I could be looking at budget and actuals and forecast compared side by side as I go through different cost types. I can go planning on things in different currencies. I can figure out my different planning horizons and what I want to look at. And the idea is I can figure out whatever the cost categories that make sense, delineate them into CapEx and OpEx categories, and really build these budgets in a way that I would do maybe in a spreadsheet, but have it roll up and be part of the actual project data that is in Project Online and be able to delineate it the way that makes the most sense to us, as well as resource capacity planning. If we look at resource capacity planning, long before we have tasks and resources assigned, I may want to know I need a business analyst for a roughly half time across this period, across this project. And I can plan this stuff in FTEs. I can plan it in hours if I want to do that. I can plan it in just percentages. And the idea is I can do the same type of planning horizons I did with the financial planning and actually plan them with either named individuals or generic resources as I justify this. This is important because at a high level, this may be all I know early on. I need this type of resource for 2 months at halftime to start this project off. And the idea there is that level of information then can be refined as the project evolves and we know more. And what's nice about this is that information can also be used in what-if analysis in optimizing the portfolio. The other key piece that we talked about is having a project collaborative site or workspace that's generated automatically according to your template each time a project's initiated. Notice I've got information like what's late and upcoming. I've got information like high-level timeline so that people who aren't interested in the gory details of every task can see the high-level checkpoints or milestones or phases that are in the project. It can come with a document library that has the process documents and the documents you need for this project type already in the site, so you don't have to go to some other content management piece in order to upload documents. You can have news feeds for conversation and informational threads according to the project, as well as tracking things like issues, risks, change requests, and even having a OneNote notebook, another key synergies that automatically is generated so that you can keep meeting minutes and notes and other project-related information in that OneNote notebook. The idea is that this is part of the native capabilities of Project Online and leverages synergies with the rest of Office 365. Another key piece here is the idea that we have a centralized resource pool. So if I go back to my project center and I go look at a central resource pool, the consistency of that is done. So when I did the capacity planning, it's leveraging a centralized resource pool. such that you can classify, just like with the projects, resources in any way you like. The example we're showing here is by department, by role, by skills, by who their manager is, but it could be by location, by plant, by whatever designation makes sense for your organization. In this case, I'm looking at business analysts, and these business analysts, if I'm responsible for them, I can very easily look at capacity planning views for those analysts as I go through. I can look in total how well I am allocated or over and under allocated in general based upon my capacities there. I can just look at simple heat maps, and I like this view because it very quickly tells me, for example, that Amy's working on 3 projects, but she's overloaded. But I also have people on my team who are under allocated that I might be able to offload some of that work to. The idea is I can get immediate aggregation of this based upon the planning level of data that I put in and be able to assess that very quickly and make that use of that information consistently across the solution. Now, using this information is interesting, not only from an analysis perspective when we're actively managing the projects, but what if we want to optimize a portfolio? This portfolio analysis that leverages all of this data is part of the solution. So for example, let's just say I wanted to look at a constraint-based analysis, and it's doing what's called efficient frontier modeling. In this case, I'm looking at saying, I had a list of potential projects that I wanted to potentially do. And some of these projects are selected or unselected based upon the fact that I gave it a $3 million budget constraint. And it's determining via efficient frontier modeling for any dollar value of spend, what's the most value I could potentially get out of this portfolio? And for $3 million, it's determining based upon the prioritization, its alignment with the drivers, et cetera, that the best I can do from a cost perspective is do 76% of the value of this potential portfolio. It'll cost me just under $3 million, and I'll get just over $7 million in benefit from this portfolio mix. Now, that being said, I can do other variations of this and iterative types of scenarios. What if I said, you know, what if I could convince the organization to give me $5 million? Notice now I can get 85% of the value of this portfolio, and for that additional $2 million, I'm getting an additional $4 million in benefit for that. If the funds can be found, it may be worth the organization's while to do this, and notice what projects have moved in over here in order to make that happen. Now, you can let the system determine entirely with automatic calculation, but you can also force in and force out projects based upon whether or not they're compliance or regulatory, CEO pet projects, etc. The idea is you can get a mix based upon a number of different things. The idea is it'll calculate that for you very nicely. And you can also look at your resource constraints. So even though if I have the dollars, doesn't necessarily mean I have the people. And so, for example, if I don't hire any additional resources, and I'm contemplating doing this mix of projects in this timeline, which was in the initial plan, it's telling me I can only get 70% of the value of the portfolio. Now, there's a few things I could do. I could stagger the timelines a little bit to get a little bit more and maybe recalculate. Or what if I said, you know, what if I could get 3 more resources, either via contracting or hiring? I can recalculate this portfolio scenario from a resource perspective, and I can get almost 7% more of the portfolio done by hiring those 3 resources. And actually having the system tell me, based upon all the capacity planning I did earlier on, it will actually tell me from a hired resources perspective what resources I would need to make that scenario work. So for example, it's telling me I need 3 developers. I need 1 on the new customer success program to this degree, and I need 2 on the Windows 7 compliance project to this degree in order to make this scenario work. Overall, some very sophisticated and cool capabilities to help you optimize your portfolio. This could be a demonstration topic in and of itself as we go on through. Now, from an integration perspective, we talked about the synergies of the rest of Office 365. One of the things that we hear is, you know, Project Online is a robust tool set, but maybe there's simpler projects or parts of the organization that maybe feel they just want to use something lighter weight. But the organization still needs to manage and track all the investments and projects in this portfolio. So what if instead of going in and drilling in, opening this up in Project Online or managing it in Project Online, we were able to integrate? So let's say, for example, we decided we wanted to do the social networking integration project in a lighter weight fashion with Office 365 Planner. We can come in here. We can look at Office 365 Planner. It can either create the project when it's new or go to it when it's in flight. And all of the data that you're capturing and using a more Kanban style board to manage this project, all the inputs and data that are required will be passed back automatically from Office 365 Planner to the portfolio itself, allowing teams that want to use a lighter weight detailed execution tool to still feed the needs of the portfolio, but use the tool of their choice. The same use case holds true, and I won't get into too much detail with things like Visual Studio, now called Azure DevOps. So if I have an Agile project, for example, and I want to manage this in Visual Studio, the same type of synchronization with the Project Online portfolio occurs. The use case is that it can take me over to the project over in Visual Studio. I can go look at the work items, and I can work on this like I typically would. My sprints or iterations, move things across the board for progress and have those updates feed directly back into Project Online. So the idea is there's other things. We use Jira and other tools like that we have synergies with, but I just want to give some examples. The cloud basis of this and the easy connectivity between these solutions and the productized connectors provided by Wickersoft really makes this a reality and easy to enable. Now, one of the big paybacks for all this is the reporting that we get. And if we go in and we look at moving into Power BI, all of the data in Project Online is has a native feed into Power BI, a native OData feed. And we can combine, for example, more traditional PPM metrics with more agile type metrics like burn ups and burn down charts and bug trends and cumulative flow diagrams, as well as be able to do things that we typically don't see, like reporting on those intake or project requests, so that we can slice through these things and be able to get information at our fingertips. The idea here is to have this be a natural output of the process, just by working the process in Project Online, and be able to slice and say, what are my critical requests, and slice into those very quickly. Or maybe just look at what the application development related requests are, look at what the costs and benefits associated with those are. And we have lots of things in the portfolio realm, in the individual project realm, in the resource realm. If we look at just individual project status, being able to automatically generate one-pager type of reports, such that right now, instead of compiling these like people do manually, to be able to have a project, a one-pager with the KPIs, the data metrics you want, gauges on things like cost, work, and progress, narrative-based status that the project managers may enter on a period-by-period basis, as well as things like upcoming tasks and milestones, active issues and risks, etc. And the idea is these can be modified to have the components that you'd like to have in them as well. Overall, even just things like having these live reports embedded into PowerPoint or Word documents, such that these live reports can be actually accessed right from within the PowerPoint document. And every time you open up the PowerPoint document, have the refreshed report with the current data, not static screen captures, but live reports within them. All things that are part of being in the cloud. As well as many folks today are using Microsoft Teams. And Microsoft Teams is an aggregator that allows you to pull all these different dimensions together. So for example, like the social networking integration project that we were working on, can pull together through Teams the different components depending on who you want to make part of the team. So they can view things like their project schedule, look at their OneNote notebook, their Power BI reports, maybe look at the details in Microsoft Office 365 Planner. And the idea is that allows people more collaborative tool sets and synergies through the rest of the Office 365 stack. So with that, I know we're running a little close to the top of the hour, so let me go and wrap up a little bit here. I will just say the value of Project Online versus on-premise PPM solutions. These will be in the slides, but there's economy of scales that it will scale as you need them to, including disaster recovery. There's SLAs from Microsoft for 99.9% uptime. You don't have to worry about all that stuff. So there's a risk reduction on your part. You don't have to manage those things. Strategic spending. You could actually reserve your capital to be invested more into the business rather than into solutions like traditionally we had to do back in the on-premise solution days. And just more capabilities more quickly through more continuous release cycles. And if you're worried about how you get there, just know that folks like Wickersoft have the ability to, and have done many migrations and have migration tools available to us that allow you to migrate your total configurations or migrate your data. This is an opportunity to rethink how you're doing things. So you may not want to bring things over verbatim, but we can leverage the things you've already done if that's the case and what you want, as well as be able to archive data. So some of those things that you don't want to lose from your old system, we can actually have a variety of ways to bring that stuff over, whether we store them in CSV or Excel files if you're not that large, or into SQL databases, either on-prem or in the Microsoft Cloud, so we can access that data via tool sets or via Power BI, so you can get that information as you want. Let's just say the timelines will vary, but the idea is that we can get there from here through some iterative-based approaches, and we have some very successful and happy migration customers. A little bit about Wickersoft. We were founded as a joint venture with Microsoft back in 2002. We are a global company. We are a 5 times gold certified Microsoft partner and still part owned by Microsoft. We are tied at the hip, not only strategically, but actually from a business perspective. And Wickersoft is a one-stop shop for your business applications, consulting services, education and training for adoption across all this. We even provide staffing services if you actually contract project management folks or PMO related staff or other related things. We're happy to help you with that. We even administer the system for some people as a managed service if you want us to do that. We can support you to whatever degree that makes sense. And project is one area that we do, but we specialize in all things Microsoft Cloud, whether it be Visual Studio or Azure DevOps, SharePoint or Dynamics. We can help you with all those different platforms. And as a next step is a special offer. If you'd like us to conduct a free discovery and assess and provide you a roadmap of what it would take you to get into these solutions, we're happy to talk with you about that. Or if you're a little farther down the road and you want to get hands-on with this, we can actually set you up with a free Project Online trial with chaperoned Wickersoft support and enablement on this to help you get the most out of that trial. Or if you just want to explore this different and get deeper than this generalized demo and have a more personalized one-on-one demo for your organization, we're happy to schedule that for you too. If so, you can reach out to us at contact@wickersoft.com. Check out our websites, and we also have a whole library of upcoming and recorded webinars from the past. So with that, I'd run a little bit over. My apologies for that. You will be getting a copy of the slide deck and a link to the recording. Hope you found value out of this presentation today, and we hope to engage with you in the future. Have a great day.